One of the reasons why I grow heirloom varieties of vegetables and I work to preserve them is that you can create a living museum in your garden. Hi, I'm Jeff Quattrone and I'm the founder of the Library Seed Bank. I work with public libraries to establish seed libraries, and a seed library is a collection of open pollinated and heirloom seeds that are available free to the public. I've been gardening my whole life. In the 60s, my family moved from Philadelphia, South Philly, to Turnersville, New Jersey. And my dad set up a garden in our backyard the next year. So my father taught us about organic gardening in the 60s. My mom taught me about gardening for flowers and herbs. And, being a second generation Italian, my grandparents had friends that were distant family members who had farms. So in the summertime, I was either in the garden in our yard or at a farm picking peppers or taking rides to produce auctions with farmer friends. So the Library Seed Bank project is a response to the corporate takeover of the seed industry. Seed libraries have been around in various forms for a number of years. It started with Monsanto. People are well aware of Monsanto from all the protests against them, but it involved other companies as well. So a few years ago, there were, I think there were 6 companies that had worked to acquire 70% of the seed lines that are available to the public. And, taking 70% of what germinates into food and putting it into the hands of a few really consolidates the power in a bad way. Biodiversity is something that I think a lot of people take for granted. It's something I took for granted for a very long time. I didn't understand the nature of biodiversity when it comes to food. Growing up in New Jersey, growing my food with my family, spending time on farms, living in an agriculturally rich state where you drive around in the summertime and there's fields of just about every kind of vegetable that you can imagine, and farm markets and farm stands and all that goes with that. And then there's supermarkets which are always well stocked. So I never imagined that food could become extinct. And once I found out that food could become extinct and that there were multiple varieties of tomatoes and multiple varieties of squash, and that these multiple varieties were biodiverse. And within that biodiversity, there's the genetic material that differentiates one variety from another. And that genetic material, it could be resistance to drought, or it could be very prolific. It could produce a lot of food, or it could give a tomato orange stripes on a red background. So there's all this genetic material that's contained within that little seed that tells not only the story of the seed itself, but it's what provides, it's what nature provided to us as a buffer against diseases, against droughts, and also a variety of colors and flavors. So this is an early blood turnip beet. It's an American beet that was introduced in 1820. It's been grown for 200 years in America, and it's going to be grown this fall by me. Oh, bees. Oh, the poor bees. Bees pollinate food. I mean, there's no two ways about it. They pollinate, I think, probably 70 to 80% of the food that we eat. So if you like squash, if you like almonds, if you like peaches, if you like a whole lot of things that we have come to put on our tables on a regular basis, it's all due to bees. And bees are out there working 24/7 to give us food, and they're just very important, and they're facing a lot of pressure right now. These tomatoes are called Incardi paste tomatoes, and they're an Italian variety that are on the Arc of Taste project that I work with. And the Arc of Taste project is a collection, or it's a catalog of local foods that are threatened, endangered, or at risk of extinction. And this is a very interesting tomato, very large for a paste tomato. There could be up to 5 different shapes of tomatoes on the one vine, and they're very tasty. Okay, Sovereignty Gardens I love this. I can't wait to get more into it. You know, when you think of food sovereignty is the rights of people or communities to secure their own culturally appropriate food without corporate interference. So in 2017, I was able to finally blend my art and my activism into a project called Growing the Food Sovereignty Revolution Propaganda Series. And that was a homage to the Victory Garden series that various governments did during the World Wars that encouraged people to grow their own food. So looking at where we are in the food system these days and the way that people are moving towards growing their own food and securing their own food, I saw a need to connect them to their rights to do that. You know, as I've been talking about with the corporate control of seeds, at the same time, there's about 10 companies that control most of the food business. So again, you're looking at 10 multinational corporations that have a lot of power over the choices that we make. So if you look at the power that food companies have over the choices that we make, and you look at the power that these agricultural chemical companies have with seeds, you're putting the choices of food into the hands of maybe 13 companies for the whole world, and that's a really scary proposition. So people have the right to secure their own food, and food sovereignty is something that was, it's a relatively new concept that started in the 90s as a response to the Green Revolution. So Sovereignty Gardens is an extension of my propaganda series because, as I mentioned, it's a homage to the Victory Garden series. So once the United States government started with all their propaganda for people to grow their own food, they also encouraged people to do it in the garden. So that's the same model that I'm following with Sovereignty Gardens, and Sovereignty Gardens is a program where people can have it in their backyard, or they can have a sovereignty garden as part of a community garden, but the key here is to connect people to the concept that it's their right to grow food. So I think that that's very important, and I think that going forward, looking at you know, the nature of the political landscape today, and the pandemic has really brought this this issue home that, you know, we can't rely on the food supply. And it's not just about gardening, it's about seeds, it's about bees, it's about food, and it's about rights. There's 4 tenets to this, and people can plug into where they fit comfortably in that. Not everybody can grow food, not everybody wants to grow food, so then they can get involved in food rights, or they can start a seed library, or there's various ways that people can you know, can get involved with doing this and to help support the notion or the right to grow food. Okay, so some of the cosmetics like this one here that you see here, I rescue plants. Some people rescue animals, I rescue plants. They were strong plants in a clearance rack, and they're thriving out here now, feeding pollinators. You know, it's the person who has seeds is more an advantage than the person who doesn't, because if you have seeds but you have no place to grow your food, you can always improvise a growing area, or you can find someone that you can share your harvest with. If you have land and you don't have seeds, you can't do any of that.